Okay, guys, so a lot of people are wondering what this hashtag release the memo is. I'm going to go through and explain it for you guys as simply as I can. So grab a drink, pause this video, grab a drink, grab something to eat. Let's sit down and let's have a chat. So the first thing you need to know about this is it's not actually just a bit of paper. Okay, it's not just a memo. It's actually a government or a stack of documents. Okay, and so the whole release the memo is a little bit uninformed. It's more of a case of documents. Now, the second thing you need to know is that this is actually a group or a cabal of 6 US agencies that created a group to get Trump removed from office. So now this is the deep state, you know, the powers that be, the people that assassinate presidents, etc. So you're probably wondering, how did they do that? Well, the first thing they did was Obama went to what they call the FISA court. Now, for the CIA, FBI to surveil their own civilians, it's illegal, right? So they need to go to the FISA court to go through and actually get permission. Now, that actually has failed twice. So they weren't able to actually surveil Trump. So what they did then was they went through with a plan B. What they did was the CIA turned around to the English Secret Service, or what they call the GCHQ, and asked them to actually surveil Trump. Now, obviously, they need a reason to do that. So what they did was they turned around and the FBI, CIA, whatever it may be, the American side, set up a meeting with Natalia Vyskoskov. I might be mispronouncing her name. You remember we mentioned her early last year or mid last year? That was the Russian lawyer that Donnie Jr. met. Now, she was radioactive. The English were already looking into her. So what they did was the FBI / the Americans basically set up a meeting with her and Donnie Jr. Now, the GCHQ, or the English intelligence agencies, turned around and said to the FBI, CIA, whoever it may be, the deep state, that she can't enter the country. How are you going to get Natalia Vyskoskov? We'll just call her Natalia. How are you going to get Natalia to meet Donnie Jr. when she's not even allowed to enter the US? That's when the FBI, the Department of Justice, Obama's group, turned around and said, not a problem, we'll give her a special visa to get her to enter the country. And that's when you remember also around the same time as it broke about Donnie Jr. meeting this lawyer, this Russian lawyer, people were asking, how did she manage to get in the country? She's radioactive. How was she allowed in? And it ended up coming out at the time that the Department of Justice and whatnot, who actually went through and gave her a special permit to come into the country. Now, it didn't really matter who Natalia actually, or what she talked about in this meeting. The proviso was to get her in a room with Paul Manafort, Trump if they could, Trump Jr., Eric Kushner, the usual suspects, so that they could then turn around and the English could use that as a reason to go through and to investigate Trump and alike. So now that Natalia has met these guys and she's in a meeting with them, and because the English are already looking into her, they then turn around and say, well, hang on, Trump is now a person of interest because he's meeting Natalia. We need to know what he's going on with him, if there's some connection or whatever. So then they start investigating Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, tapping Trump's phones, basically just going through and gathering surveillance on them. Now, because they've done that, the GCHQ is taking an interest in Trump. The CIA, or whoever it was at the time, the deep state, turns around and says to the GCHQ, hey, you're looking into one of our people. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You're looking into one of our residents. Would you like to share that information? And the GCHQ says, not a problem, big brother CIA. Here's all the information. Here's all the wiretaps. Here's all the recordings. that we have for Trump, Manafort, Donny Jr., everything. Now, why did the GCHQ work with the CIA to go through and to wiretap Trump? Mainly, we presume, because the GCHQ wants this done to one of their own people. So it's a bit of pay for play. For example, you go through and investigate one of our residents, we'll set up the meeting. We'll go through and investigate one of your residents, you set up the meeting. Meanwhile, we then share information, and it's a way around the FISA warrant. Now, you'll also remember a few, early last year, I believe it was, when the whole wiretapping or the reports came out regarding the wiretaps, people were wondering how people's names were unmasked from the information. Well, that's obviously the Department of Justice that's involving that. And that's the information they actually gathered reportedly from the GCHQ. That's all the recordings and everything that they had. And yeah, it was a way around this whole not being able to get the FISA warrants. They still needed to record Trump because they needed to get some reason for him to get it out of the office. They were worried about him going in. So it was their quote plan. So now you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with Hillary Clinton? Well, actually, it doesn't actually have much to do with her at all. Some of the people that are involved in this conspiracy are actually involved with Hillary Clinton's server as well, but that's as far as that goes. So, for example, Peter Skorchkov, might be mispronouncing photo here, he actually went through and he was also working on the Hillary Clinton server as well. He was also one of the people that was involved in those text messages that were sent to him and to, I believe it was Lisa Page, who was then turning around going on about Trump and everything along those lines. So yeah, he's part of the resistance, the deep state, that went through and tried to get Trump kicked out of the office, not to win the race, whatever it may be. So what does this have to do with the Steele dossier? Well, the Steele dossier was actually paid for supposedly by the Clinton Foundation, who then turned around and gave the information to the MI6, MI5 agent, Christopher Steele, who then turned around and gave it to Comey, who then used that to go through and to launch the investigation into Trump to get him removed from office. So that was like Plan C, for example. Now, at the end of the day, what implications does this actually have? Well, there's actually a precedence called fruits of the poison tree. So, for example, Flynn and Palopoulos, I might be mispronouncing that name as well, these two guys up here on the left and right, have actually been charged with lying to the FBI. Now, it is actually entirely possible that these two charges on these guys be reversed because of this illegal wiretapping that was done by the GCHQ, wink wink, nudge nudge, MI5, MI6. Because obviously they set up this meeting to then obviously go through and get the wiretaps done. Another thing that you need to know also is that the GCHQ weren't actually doing this from over in England. They were actually working next to the CIA the whole time in most likely what we believe is Maryland. It's actually working in the same building, but it's quite legal, technically, because they go through and they say, well, we're confiscating this cubicle, we're confiscating this computer, this is now property of GCHQ, and we're going to use that to wiretap. Also, a quick update on this too, guys. Twitter has actually deleted the hashtag release the memo. Because there were that many people talking. It was actually trending. I've seen it in number 1 and number 4 in the US. So yeah, just a quick update on why the hashtag is no longer trending. It looks like Twitter has actually removed it. So now that you have a basic idea of what is actually going on, how do you get involved? What can you do? So what you need to do is we need everybody to start calling their local candidate and putting pressure on them to release the memo. I have got a tweet going on my page, so obviously please feel free to go and retweet that actually deals with the release the memo. It basically says this, and I'll put a photo of it here. So yeah, obviously go through, just retweet that if you can. Also talk to your local members, so your local candidates, and start asking them to vote to release the memo. So what does the actual vote do? Well, the vote actually says that the US government can actually release this memo so that it is in actual public interest. And that will allow the public to actually get hold of this memo and go through and actually have all the information and facts. If anyone cares about RussiaGate, this is it. This is the collusion between the US government and Russia. The only problem is, it doesn't actually have much to do with Trump, and it has more to do with the deep state, the CIA, whatnot, setting up meetings so that they can then use those meetings to go through and actually use that to spy on Trump through the GCHQ. So guys, look, obviously, very quick note at the end of this, all this information is also available on Lionel Nation's channel. I will put a link to that in the description below, so please go through and check that out. He does have a video up there, it's about 50 minutes. It is kind of long-winded, and he does sort of go off on a tangent a few times like he always does. But obviously he has given a more comprehensive list than I have. I've basically gone through and just given the headlines. But yeah, that's basically what this Release the Memo does, or is about. Now, who's actually potentially caught up in this? And this is where it gets really interesting. So, now the deep state is obviously the CIA, Department of Justice, Department of National Intelligence, but you also have people, for example, Attorney General Lynch, Holder, Obama, the president at the time, because of the whole FISA court and everything along those lines, FISA courts themselves, Comey from the FBI, Lisa Page, Peter Scrotts, who's also the FBI and was also involved in the Hillary Clinton email server, and Sally Yates from the Department of Justice. Now, like I say, we haven't seen the memo, we don't know exactly what's in it, but this is pretty much what we've gathered it's all about. And to be honest, is it as damning as what people say? Yeah, because you got people saying stuff like this.
I read today in that classified briefing room is as bad as I thought it was, and every single American citizen should have the ability to see that information to know exactly what our FBI was up to.
Will it shock the conscience of the American people?
Sean, it shocked me. I compared it to, I remember the day I walked in 2 years ago on the Benghazi committee, walked in and saw the immunity agreements that were given to people in the Clinton investigation. I didn't know who they'd given them to. I opened up that folder and I looked down when the Justice Department official slid that folder over to me on that table and looked down and see they gave Cheryl Mills immunity during the Clinton investigation, Clinton's chief of staff, her lawyer. Today, when I read the material, I had that same shock feeling. I was like, wait a minute, this actually happened from our Justice Department and this FBI. That's how serious this is. That's why we're calling on every bit of that information we got to see today to be made public for you to see, for journalists to see, most importantly, for the American people to see.
And people saying stuff like this.
What's it say?
Unfortunately, I can't get into the specific details in a top secret document, but that's why we have to release it. I don't think it's appropriate for just members of Congress to be horrified by the activities that were undertaken during this endeavor, and that's why we've got to allow the American people to see it. I will tell you this, Bill. If we get this memo into the public square, heads are going to roll at the FBI and at the Department of Justice. There is no way everyone keeps their job.
One comment said it was like the KGB. This is really strong language. Is the suggestion that the abuse on behalf of the federal government was indeed spying on Americans without their knowledge and without proper legal authority? Yes or no?
Again, that would get into the specific contents of the memo. I can tell you that we can never live in a country where this type of thing happens. And particularly the authentication processes that are laid out in the memo are of such fiction. They are so laughable that they would never withstand scrutiny from the public. And what I'm worried about is that the cast of characters identified in this memo is not a group of people who are gone. Many of these people are still in our government. They still wield influence, and that's why we've got to get this information out in public.
You just said people will be fired at the FBI and Department of Justice,
and possibly worse. I think that there could be people who could face criminal consequences as a result of the activities that are laid out in this memo. And it's easy to see after reading this memo why Senator Grassley and why Senator Graham wanted to refer this matter for criminal prosecution. Laws were broken.
Wow, this is a big deal here. Will we see it? Yes or no?
Yes, I have every confidence after speaking with Paul Ryan and Devin Nunes that after we go through the right procedures and provide the adequate notice to the executive branch that we will release this memo, but we need the public to continue to call for it. And I'm encouraged that within the last half hour, there have been over 20,000 tweets on Twitter with the hashtag release the memo. It shows that the American public is demanding more transparency, and that's really how we drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. More transparency, more sunshine. It's the best antidote to corruption.
You've said a lot.
These are guys that have actually read the memo in a confidential room, and they are saying it's big. So it's not just hype. This is TikTok. This is actual proof that can actually bring down the deep state, which is why everybody needs to be talking about this. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you think that this is going to bring down the deep state? Do you think that this is as big as everybody is talking it out to be? Or do you think this is going to be a great big nothing burger? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. If this video has been helpful, please smack a like. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. And apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great day and enjoy.